Hello and welcome back to the Military Time. Today, we bring you a developing story that's sending shockwaves across Russia's economic and political landscape. An unprecedented wave of mass layoffs has struck Moscow, leading to growing unrest among Russian workers, 254,000 of whom have reportedly turned their frustrations toward President Vladimir Putin. The country's largest industries are struggling, triggering economic anxieties and social tension that could reshape the internal dynamics of Russia during a time of war and increasing global isolation. Let's begin with the heart of this turmoil. Reports indicate that Russia's industrial backbone, once a source of national pride and economic strength, is now buckling under immense pressure. Key sectors like manufacturing, energy, construction, logistics, and even high-tech industries are seeing severe contractions. Government subsidies are being stretched thin, and as Western sanctions continue to throttle the Russian economy, businesses are unable to withstand the rising financial stress. The effect: bankruptcies among some of the country's largest and most strategically important companies, resulting in mass layoffs, especially in and around Moscow. The capital city, often described as the nerve center of Russia's power structure, has been hit particularly hard. Workers, many of whom were once loyal to state narratives, are now facing unemployment, dwindling savings, and an uncertain future. Moscow's large industrial and technological parks have seen massive job cuts. Some workers have reported receiving termination notices with little warning, no severance, and no clear prospect of re-employment. This is fueling a sense of betrayal and disillusionment, especially among those who once believed the government's promise of stability and strength. The discontent is not just economic, it's becoming political. Layoffs of this scale are rare in Russia's modern history, and many are interpreting them as a sign of deeper systemic collapse. The situation is drawing comparisons to the late Soviet era, when declining economic conditions preceded an eventual political shift. For many families, the harsh reality is setting in. Their jobs, livelihoods, and security are no longer guaranteed in Putin's Russia. Several reports suggest that workers' anger is beginning to break into the public sphere. While open protest remains dangerous in Russia, especially in Moscow, signs of quiet rebellion are emerging. Anonymous leaflets, underground social media movements, and whispers of labor strikes are gaining attention. Experts warn that if the economic crisis deepens further, the Kremlin could face a more vocal uprising, not just from political dissidents, but from ordinary citizens with nothing left to lose. Let's break down why this is happening. Russia's economy has been largely shielded from collapse due to strong state reserves, oil and gas exports, and government control over key sectors. However, the prolonged war and the resulting sanctions have forced Russia to divert massive funds to sustain military operations. These funds were supposed to be used for civilian infrastructure and industrial development. Instead, industries like aviation, automotive manufacturing, and natural resource development are crumbling without support. International sanctions have crippled access to foreign machinery, technology, and business partnerships that once allowed Russian industries to remain competitive. Supply chains have been cut, imports blocked, and exports sanctioned. The government's counter-policies like import substitution and pivoting to Asian markets have failed to fully compensate for these losses. For many businesses, bankruptcy is no longer a threat on the horizon. It's their present reality. Let's talk about the political ramifications. Putin's image as the architect of Russian resurgence is now being tested. His promise of economic might and international stature was central to his decades-long hold over the Kremlin. But now, for the first time in years, a significant portion of the Russian population is seeing cracks in that narrative. Kremlin analysts warn that unemployment figures in the hundreds of thousands could translate into dissent if not managed carefully. The government's response so far has been heavily propagandistic, with state-controlled media downplaying the scale of the layoffs and framing them as temporary adjustments. Officials have called for patience, urging the public to focus on national solidarity during a time of external pressure. But this strategy is wearing thin, especially as food prices rise, savings dry up, and worker protests quietly simmer. Meanwhile, Russia's involvement in Ukraine continues to siphon billions from the national budget. Military spending has reached record levels, and that's a red flag for workers wondering why their factories are closing while the Kremlin funds war on foreign soil. The question growing louder in Russia's cities is, why are we being made to suffer for a war we didn't ask for? Some analysts warn that this could mark the beginning of a broader shift, a moment when the loyal silence of Russian laborers gives way to resentment and, eventually, open resistance. While no one is predicting an imminent uprising, the scale of these layoffs, 254,000 people, is too large to ignore, especially when concentrated in the capital. Let's conclude by pointing out that Russia's domestic situation is entering a new phase. For years, the Kremlin relied on a mix of propaganda, subsidies, and nationalism to keep the population compliant. But economic pain is a powerful force. It challenges even the most deeply entrenched systems. And now, for the first time in a generation, Russia's workers are no longer silent. They are losing faith in a system that once promised to lift them, but is now letting them fall. We'll continue monitoring this situation as it develops. If mass layoffs continue and political discontent intensifies, it could trigger a chain reaction across the country. Keep watching Military Time for the most reliable updates on global conflict, political unrest, and the changing tides of war and economy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this report with those who want to stay informed. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more.